Hi, I'm Ben Pollard and I work here at the Lewis and Clark State Historic Site. Today I want to talk about some critical members of the expedition. They have a certain skill that no one else has, and that's the ability to speak multiple languages and act as interpreters on the Lewis and Clark journey. Captain Lewis and Captain Clark know from a very early point that they will need to hire on some really good interpreters and guides because they don't speak the languages of the tribes out west. In fact, Lewis might have a few words of French, but they know very little. And so to be conversant with the engagés and other boatmen that are moving their supplies, to be conversant with the different fur trappers upriver, and then to be able to talk to the many, many tribes they're going to interact with, they're going to need to find people that can bridge that language barrier from Lewis to the people they're speaking with. And so Captain Lewis and Captain Clark are very lucky in that at Fort Massac, as they're headed down the Ohio River, they run into George Drouillard. George Drouillard is part Shawnee, part French, and he's been in this area for a while. He's an interpreter, he's a great hunter, and Lewis and Clark hire him on the spot, agreeing to pay him $25 a month for his interpretive work. He not only speaks the Shawnee language and French, he is also a very useful interpreter in that he speaks the Plains Sign Language. It was a series of body movements and hand movements that most of the tribes that live out in the Great Plains had a grasp of. There are, of course, some different variants from tribe to tribe, but Lewis always said that most of the time Drouillard was able to speak and get the big ideas across, that the expedition was coming peacefully, that they wanted to trade, that they wanted to learn more about the people in that village where they're meeting. For a majority of their journey, he will be incredibly valuable, well worth his $25 a month. Two others that are brought on very early and actually made privates in the expedition are Francois Labiche and Pierre Cruzatte. Now, I didn't talk about them in the engagé video because they are soldiers here in camp, but their career up until this point has been as engagés. They've gone on expeditions and fur trading journeys up the Missouri River. They're part French, part Omaha, so they've already lived out west for a time. They've got an idea of the tribes and a handful of the languages out west. Francois Labiche is even able to speak English. So he's going to be a critical first link for Lewis going from English into French, and then from there, further on. Now, their language skills, just like Drouillard's, are going to get fuzzier the further west they go. Lewis and Clark are already knowing that that's going to happen. They're going to bring them on to be that first step in their language translation chain. And so later on, they will find fur trappers that speak a language that one of them can interpret, and they will hire them on for an on-the-spot interpreter job. Later on, they will also, at the Mandan villages, bring on Toussaint Charbonneau and his wife, Sacagawea. They will be critical in maintaining some of those translation chains much further west. Now, these critical chains get pretty messy. Obviously, going up and just pantomiming what you want, as Captain Lewis did from time to time, are not going to be very effective. Captain Clark and Captain Lewis, both in different times in their journals, talk about how they were not able to talk to people coming to trade or different hunting groups that they ran into because they had want of an interpreter. So George Drouillard or one of the other interpreters were just not in camp at the time or off on a different job, and so they often missed opportunities to make these important diplomatic connections. But these chains do get messy even when the interpreters are there. And we have here in our gallery an example of one of those chains later on as they got out further west. Now, this is one where they are already across the Rockies, and Captain Lewis over here is wanting to talk to this man that only speaks Salish. And so they have to go through 5 languages by way of 6 people to be understood. So Captain Lewis would talk to this guy right here, Francois Labiche. Labiche, who speaks French, is able to talk to Toussaint Charbonneau, who shares a language of Hidatsa with Sacagawea. Now, she speaks Shoshone, and this man here also speaks Shoshone and Salish, completing the chain. That's a 5-language chain. So, of course, sometimes some of the more flowery language of Lewis and Clark is going to get lost as it's being broken down from point to point. But at least the big ideas got across. Now, this is not just about being understood or being met diplomatically. Lewis and Clark have to buy things and get directions from the different tribes they're meeting along the way. So if they're misunderstood here, they're not going to be able to buy the things they need or get the directions for the right place to go. And so these chains are incredibly important. These are some of the most important skills of the trip, and that's why we're making our own special video about them here for our channel. That's about it for today. I want to thank you for watching. If you liked this video about building the team here at Camp Rive du Bois, we have a few others in the series. We have other videos you can check out on our YouTube and Facebook channel as well. If you have any ideas for videos that we can do or questions we can answer, go ahead and leave them in the comments or message us directly through Facebook.